You are listening to the voice of jazz from Babylon Zoo. We will be making contact with you exclusively on Top of the Pops.
Spaceman by Babylon Zoo was the song that outsold the Beatles and also fooled the nation. This song mesmerised people with its sci-fi sound and also chipmunk vocals. There was a big demand for this song to be released, and luckily for them, a single was going to be released in January 1996. And when it was released, it was a big commercial success. It sold over 380,000 records and it was at #1 for 5 consecutive weeks. It also became the fastest selling debut UK single in the history.
You love it, you just keep buying it and you've made it the fastest selling debut single of all time. That's right, with its 4th week at #1, Babylon Zoo are Top of the Pops.
There was multiple live videos of this song being performed on Top of the Pops, which would have been viewed by millions. So this should be where the video ends, but unfortunately the single that got released in 1996 was not quite what the public expected. The single starts with that familiar sound from the Levi advert, however after 30 seconds this sound then drops out, the BPM slows right down and then the vocals come in. Compare this sound and this lyric with the Levi advert with its sci-fi futuristic sound, and it's such a jarring change from the first 30 seconds of the song. As the song progresses, more loud guitars come in and it goes for an almost grunge alternate rock sound. It's not actually until 1 minute and 30 seconds in that you actually hear the main vocal hook that was in the Levi advert. And obviously it is much slower because the BPM has slowed down too. The sped up chipmunk vocals actually come back in at the very end of the song, and in my opinion that is mistake number 2, in that they use it at the start and use it at the end, but the middle is such a jarring difference. If you were going to release this song, you would either release the chipmunk version or you would release the rock version, and instead they decided to do a mishmash of the two, and this is perhaps where people's expectations weren't met. But you could say it actually did, because it stayed at #1 for 5 consecutive weeks. There's lots of accounts on Facebook groups that reminisce about the 90s saying that they were so excited to hear this single that they rushed out to the music shop, bought the CD, took it home, put it in the CD player, pressed play, and were so disappointed after the first 30 seconds they took the CD out and either returned it or chucked it in the bin. But there would have been people that would have known what the song sounded like because it was performed on Top of the Pops multiple times. So I'd say that people did actually dig the grunge and alt rock sound, which in 1996 was still quite a popular sound. Or maybe they were just looping the first 30 seconds round. Now it's coming up to almost 30 years since this song was released and there's still mystery and misinformation about this song. So the main mystery about this is, where did the Levi version come from? Now it's no secret that the version came from a remix from Arthur Baker. However, finding this version has actually been quite difficult, and I've spent really maybe too many hours trying to research this. On Spotify there is the 5th Dimension version. This is quite close in terms of the BPM, however it is missing the vocal hooks. On YouTube there are also some Capital remixes and also Kiss remixes. Now I think these were just versions that were provided from the record label around the time of the single release, specifically for those radio stations. So again, I don't think this is the original source of the version that was used on the Levi advert. Now I went on to Discogs, which lists all the versions that were released of Spaceman, and it's quite interesting that there were quite a few promo CDs, and there was also actually a single that was released before the single that reached #1. So on this single it has a version of Spaceman that is really more rocky and has much less synths and certainly has a less futuristic sound. But on this CD there is also a remix that is called Arthur Baker Meets the Spaceman. So this version is actually a slower BPM than the 5th Dimension, but it does include that vocal hook that was included in the Levi advert. So the two mysteries remained of who sped up the track, which then got noticed by Levi to use it in the advert, and 2, who decided to release the single that was part chipmunk, part grunge. But going back to those Facebook groups, there was a couple of comments that stood out for me. Now obviously we need to take it with a pinch of salt because there's no source of any sort, but if you're talking about Babylon Zoo by Spaceman, are you really going to be making this up? So So this comment said that the original single that was released bombed so much that they remixed it and then it was bootlegged, played at clubs, which was then picked up by Levi. Now I think there is some truth in this, and actually there was a reply to this comment. The reply to the comment said this was pretty close but not quite. The engineer and producer was so unhappy with the track that they decided to speed it up like Goldie did in his track. So what I believe happened is Arthur Baker actually sped up his own remix, the Arthur Baker meets the Spaceman. This unofficial mix, because it never appeared on any Discogs release, then got played at some clubs perhaps, which then got picked up by an ad agency, which then was used for the Levi advert. In 1996, this mix did actually get a name and was released and was called the Supervariant Mix. This mix was the version that everyone actually wanted. So the mystery of who made the decision to release the part chipmunk and part grunge version is a mystery, but you could probably say it's a bit of a truce between Babylon Zoo and the record label. Further evidence comes from this clip about using songs for advertising, which says that Arthur Baker applied warp speed to the song.
But Jazz's track only attracted the attention of the advertisers when Arthur Baker applied warp speed.
I listened to it, I thought this is fantastic because it had this strange chipmunked opening to it. That it wasn't done by the original artist. We then approached the artist, who said, under no circumstances am I going to have my voice chipmunked. I'm not this. I'm a serious musician. How dare you chipmunk my voice? And it was his manager who had, I think, sit him down and explain how the world worked and say, look, this is a big chance for you, you know, just do it.
The alternate argument is actually Arthur Baker wasn't the one that sped up the track, because as you can see from the reply to the Facebook comment, it does mention that the producer of the track actually got a little bit screwed over. So I could actually see it as the producer of the single, which wasn't Arthur Baker, was the one that sped up the song, which then got used in the Levi advert. Because then it would pose a question of, well, who actually is the producer if someone had sped up the Arthur Baker remix? Would it be Arthur Baker, or would it be the person that sped it up? And this is perhaps what this comment is alluding to. So I thought this was quite a quirky story for a song that was essentially a one-hit wonder. I know they had a few other songs, but this was their main hit, and it was such a big seller, and even to this day there's still a bit of mystery about it.